samurai fight here, and at last we have Neo 2 in our hands. It's been 3 long years since we got the original Neo, and I'll be making a ton of guides explaining everything and going through pretty much, well, everything in the game, from weapons to builds to guides to boss strategies, what have you. So we're gonna start from the very basics here, the tutorial and which weapon you should start with. Now, the information I will be sharing comes from 2 sources: my very extensive 400 plus hours experience with the first Neo and its DLCs, and the beta tests that became available in the previous weeks coming up to the release date. So we're gonna start from the left, and I'm gonna explain to you why you should or should not pick the weapon in question to suit your playstyle better. What we have to be totally clear about is that you will be able to use every weapon in the game if you acquire them, when you acquire them. There is no restriction. This is not a restrictive choice. It's just the 2 initial weapons you will be starting with to help you familiarize yourself with the game and move through the tutorial. So the first one is the Katana. It's linked to Heart. The Katana is deceptively effective. In Neo 2, it was one of the most interesting weapons to deal out massive amounts of damage with precise swings. The EI techniques that you could deploy by using a shed weapon would devastate opponents. It would devastate opponents in PvE, and it would devastate opponents in PvP if you could land it. From those I'm familiar with the game, EI is a technique where you sieve the weapon and quick draw it to deal a massive amount of precise swing damage. This is linked to Heart, as I said, and we're gonna go through the stats real quick. Here we have Constitution, affects your life and your resistance to poison and paralysis. Heart affects your ki and your resistance against fire. That means it actually affects your stamina up to a certain point where it caps. This will be very important. You will always want to have as much stamina as possible, and this links very nicely with using the single blade. Courage affects your ki recovery speed. This is a very important stat because if you have a humongous bar, you will also want it to be able to feel faster. So these 2 go coupled. Stamina affects your life and your maximum equipment weight. The heavier the armor, the more stamina you will need. Strength is a requirement for activating special effects of heavy armor, that is unlocking its perks. Its resistance to water attacks as well. The skill stat is required to activate special effects of light armor, of course. Dexterity affects the capacity and effectiveness of ninjutsu, that is the ninja techniques that you will acquire, and magic affects the capacity of Onmyo magic and its effectiveness. Those are the spells you will be able to use. So the weapon you use most will have to go hand in hand with your stat of relation here. If you're using a katana, you'll have to high heart, and so on and so forth. So katana is the first weapon, is a very good base weapon if you want to experiment with it. I'd certainly suggest you give it a go as with all the rest of the weapons, but if you want to start with something simple and easy to understand, the katana is your choice. Now the spear, I always said that Neo was the game with the most exciting spear gameplay you would find. Well, maybe the initial Dark Souls as well. The spear is very good, it can reach very far and it can deal good damage, and it has some pretty awesome techniques as well. You can air juggle enemies or air juggle yourself with the spear. If you master it, you will be able to keep yourself out of harm's way and also deal good damage from further away. It's linked to Constitution, so again, we go here. affects your life and your resistance to poison and paralysis, so if you invest heavily in Constitution to be able to effectively use a spear, you will also have a ton of HP and high resistance to poison and paralysis. The next is the axe. Now the axe, as you probably understand, is a heavy swings weapon that take up a ton of stamina and deal very high damage. I don't know if you will be able to use this at all in PvP, like in Neo 1 in PvP, axes were like the weapons you'd never see unless you were playing against a very weak opponent. But, well, things might be different in Neo 2, we don't know yet. It is linked to stamina, as you can see here. Stamina affects your life as well, and your maximum equipment weight. So if you go with axes, you will also be able to equip high endurance armor, high defense armor, that is the heavy kind, and that used to be the meta in Neo 1, like you would be as tanky as possible if you wanted to tackle higher level content and PvP. Hope that changes, because it was very polarizing back in the day. Here we have Tonfa. The Tonfa are your quick damage weapons. The moves usually have low cost and come out fast, but the damage is, well, understandably lower than slower weapons, linked to courage, so stamina recovery, key recovery. You want to be on the offensive with this. Here we have the Hatchets. This is a new addition in Neo 2. The Hatchets are a tad slower than the Tonfa, and as I understand it, a bit more damaging. The intricacies of these weapons are still not quite clear to me. Well, it is a new archetype. We'll have to experiment with them and experience what they have to offer. Look pretty interesting, and I suppose they might suit a certain playstyle. I will have to go in depth with their skills, their available skills, but to be able to use those, I will also have to level up my character and experiment a bit with them. So bear with me. If I discover anything particularly interesting about the Hatchets, I will make a guide on them as soon as possible, as I will be making guides with the rest of the weapons anyway. So skill is the related stat. The core stat required to activate the special effects of light armor, so you will want to be nimble, you will want to be fast, wear light armor and use it to the best of its potential by developing your skill attribute. The Switchglaive is also new. I used this in the beta actually. Very interesting weapon with very fluid combos. It is tied to your magic stats though. If you wanna make a spellcaster-like character, this will be very interesting. Magic is tied to Onmyo. Onmyo is, well, the spellcasting capabilities of your character, like in Neo 1. I found it very interesting. Magic in Neo is extremely powerful. It's not like in the Souls game where it's like supplementary most of the time. It's very, very powerful. You will want to give this a go if you try to develop a magic power-related character. The twin swords are a staple from Neo 1, faster than the Hatchets, and I can tell you that they're very, very good in pretty much everything. The damage output is great, they have great combos, investing in skill is always a good idea. It also sports EI techniques like seething and quick drawing that used to do tremendous amount of damage. So it is also a very good starting weapon for fast characters, and if you want to be a bit spammy until you get the timing of your key recovery down. And we're ending up with the Odachi. The Odachi needs strength to be effective. Odachi used to be pretty much the absolute meta back in Neo 1. It used to be very, very, very effective in PvP. The damage output of this thing is great. And it also is deceptively fast. It offers an EI technique as well, where you sit and quick draw the weapon for high damage. It offers some ground slams that deal damage around you, like AoE and so on and so forth. I'd say the Odachi might be the best starting weapon for players who are new to Neo, because you don't really need to go in there and land a very large amount of hits to take down an enemy. Just time a couple of swings right and small enemies would go down without fuss. I expect some people to have some experience with Soulsborne to be able to make the best use of all this info, but I can promise you guys, Neo is very hard to get into because there's not a moment's pause in this game. Your stamina doesn't recover passively as fast as you would like it to if you don't input the key pulses and so on and so forth. We'll go in depth with everything, like I'll make combat guides, of course, about pretty much everything in the game. But for now, if I have to make a very specific suggestion about what you should start with, I would say get the Odachi for your bread and butter enemies, and as a supplementary weapon, get a spear. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because Constitution will affect your life, and it will also improve your spear, and you want to have as much HP as possible in the beginning. And Strength allows you to use heavy armor. So if you're learning the basics now, be as tanky as possible with a large health pool, and this will help you go through your initial playthrough. Those weapons offer good range and good damage, and some very interesting crowd controlling techniques that you will be glad to have on your side. Of course, as you pick up new equipment, you will want to use the highest damage weapons that you will be getting. Don't get stuck with a specific weapon, because if they're low level, they will be pretty much useless. Neo works kinda differently than Dark Souls. It's more like a hack and slash looter, like Diablo. So you have a high level item, it will always be better than your lower level item with the better perks. But after a certain while in the game, you will be able to transfer perks from weapon to weapon, optimize them, and make builds the way you like them. So I hope you find this useful, guys. I will be covering everything in Neo 2. I'm a huge fan of Neo 1s with a ton of guides. You can find my work on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the adventure. And if you need any help, any specific info, don't forget to comment in the comment section below. Until next time, be well, stay frosty, and always strive for perfection. Cheers.